What gets measured gets what? What indeed. Today's episode is an extract from a recent live training event where I get into the most ubiquitous of agile metrics, velocity. I'd love to know what comes to mind when you see what gets measured gets. Okay, what have we got? Andrew says what gets measured gets managed, gets attention, nice, gets completed, gets managed again, gets judged. Wow, I guess that could be a good thing or a bad thing, couldn't it? Helen says what gets measured gets done. That's what I thought everyone was going to say that. But no, you guys are too clever for me. What gets measured gets attention, gets analysed and understood, gets rushed. Oh, I quite like that. Gets visible, gets misinterpreted. Oh, yeah. Gets cheated. Oh, thank you for that one. That so leads into some things I have to say a little bit later on. Andre says gets done, gets improved, gets attention, prioritized, improved. Yeah. Gets played. Yeah, in the sense of, I think distorted, which is the word that, so what gets measured gets done. I think we've all heard that, or some version of it, and quite a few people said something like that. Yeah, but this old thing about if we're not careful, maybe it gets distorted, played, gamed in some way. Aha, yeah. So what do we measure in Agile? I think the king of Agile, I don't want it to sound like I'm supporting it, but the one that's everywhere is my old friend, my nemesis actually, velocity. So let's talk about velocity in terms of engine and steering wheel. Now, I'm a physics graduate, so velocity to me has a very particular meaning, a scientific definition. So going back to my travels to Newcastle, when I head off to Newcastle at 70 miles an hour along the motorway, because that is, after all, the national speed limit, when I head in that direction, and I'm doing 70, it says that on my speedo, and my little bubbly compass says I'm heading in a Newcastle direction, then my velocity is also 70 miles an hour, asterisk, in the direction of Newcastle. Very important to specify the direction when we're talking about velocity. If I was to head off at 70 miles an hour in the direction of Penzance, I'd still be doing 70 miles an hour, but my velocity in the direction of Newcastle would be 0. I'm not getting any closer to Newcastle, and if I go far enough, I'm actually heading away from Newcastle. My velocity will turn negative. So that's the scientific velocity. And if we go to the next slide, yeah, it's a combination, isn't it? I hope you can see that. It's a combination of the engine and the wheel. Both are kind of mixed up into that thing that we call velocity. Engine on its own is speed. So yeah, speed plus direction equals velocity. I hope that's not too much science for anyone. But what about in Agile? Because I think we also have a similar kind of split. We have engine on its own, and engine with some kind of direction, engine plus steering wheel. And if I tell you that, I'm sure you're miles ahead of me here, but just in case you're coming across velocity for the first time, you lucky person, a velocity is story points over time. So time is almost always a sprint. So story points delivered per sprint. Story points delivered per sprint. Story points are a expression, a measure of, roughly speaking, work. And work is really just the engine, right? It doesn't really tell us what kind of work it is. So question for you, do we have what would you call it? If it's work, but it's work that a customer might care about, what would you call that? Do you have a I think I have a word for it, but I just want to check with you. So the idea that we do work, but it's the right kind of work, rather than just chunking through tasks all day long, right? We spend time choosing between, if there are 2 tasks to do, we think, yeah, this is the one we should be doing because of something. Oh my goodness, you guys are awesome. I really thought we might go all over the place again. But I'm seeing, let's have a look. Who should we put up? Helen and many other people said value. And value was the word I was thinking about. Joseph said business value, absolutely. Quality, actually quality's not bad. Fitzer said planned and prioritized. And I think that's true as well. We plan it and we prioritize it based on, well, I hope we do, on value. So I think that's yes. I hope that's another way of saying expressing a similar kind of thing, that we want to be doing the right work and not just work. And that's where I bring us back to what gets measured gets done. Well, let's say that it gets done. But what is it that gets done? If we prioritize this thing velocity, well, we've just established really that it's work rather than value. Well, every Scrum team, and actually every Scrum team every 2 weeks, every Kanban team, much more regularly than that, looks at a pile of work and selects it. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if a team is pressurized to maximize its velocity, it might take one subsection of that work to go and work on in order to maximize its velocity, in order to get work done. But if it was looking at that same pile and was prioritizing on value, it might select, and probably would select, I've seen teams do this in real life, a different set of work. I'm going to jump in right here because now I want to hear from you. Do you see this distinction between work and value, and how velocity really is a measure of work, and how if we focus too much on velocity, if we focus too much on just work getting done, that the result is likely to be distortion or worse. Let me know what you think about, where, in them there comments below.